What is one of the biggest challenges you have to deal with while living abroad?
Losing a loved one and not being close to family when it happens. We're Chris and Jackie, back again with our series Aprende Más, where we kind of give you a little bit more insight into small town living in San Miguel, things that maybe the touristy videos won't show you. Today we have maybe an interesting, more tough subject to tackle, and that subject is death, right? We all kind of move here and we leave, a lot of us leave family behind. Some of us are lucky enough to bring all our family with us. But as you know, life progresses and life ends, as it always does for all of us at some point. You may not be as close to family as you want to be when they leave this earth. And that's always a challenge because, you know, you want to be around your family in those hard times. And if you're here, you can't be there. And you're always going to worry about, you know, those that are older. And as we're getting into, you know, our 40s here, the generation before us are starting to leave. And that's been something we've had to deal with over the last couple of years. Literally, you lost your brother right before we left. You lost your mother not too long after that. You lost your aunt. I lost 2 aunts in that time. And I just recently lost my father. And all those things are things, actually, luckily, you were actually back home when your aunt passed. So you were able to be a little bit closer to family. But it's something that I think a lot of people don't talk about when we talk about moving abroad. Mm-hmm. Sort of what do you have to leave behind? And also, how do you deal with that space when your loved ones are dying and you have to go back and forth? Mm-hmm. I think there is, for some people, a certain amount of guilt mm-hmm. that maybe stops them from moving abroad because mm-hmm. they don't want to leave, you know, family members behind, or my mom is older or my aunts are older and I want to be there to take care of them. And that's all an option we all have to kind of weigh within ourselves. You know, what's more important, the kind of moving abroad part or staying close to family? Mm-hmm. You know, how hard was that decision for you? If you feel like sharing, I know this is a touchy subject for you in some ways, because when we left, you know, mom was in a home at the time. She had dementia. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough decision to say, you know, I want to go and move abroad. Like, how did you kind of deal with weighing your options in that situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the biggest thing is how I do, like in my coaching program. We got to control our controllables, right? So I literally I sat down, thought about it. Obviously, we prayed about it. But we're talking about life, right? We don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. Not in a greedy way, but in just a good old-fashioned, I want my life to be the best that it can be, right? So who am I responsible for? You know, what are my responsibilities and how do I care for them irrespective of where I live, right? So mom had dementia for 9 years. We took care of her for about 5 of those years. And then we were blessed to have an amazing home, a residential facility, you know, staffed with great caregivers to take care of her. And so they were taking care of her for 4 years before she passed away. And whether we lived down the street or like when we moved like 45 minutes away, you know, up the highway, she was cared for, period.
Right. And we were super lucky in that, you know, the home she was in was a small house environment. It wasn't like a big nursing home. Yeah. And the family was there, literally treated us and her like real family. Exactly. They were family from the Gambia. And, you know, they opened their establishment in order to have that sort of hands-on, you know, really wanted to keep her intimate. Right. So we had her in an environment that felt like she was truly taken care of, and it wasn't just, you know, stick her in a corner, give her some applesauce, and nobody, you know, interact with her all day. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Nope, they took care of her for 4 whole years, you know, and so she was cared for. Then, of course, we have our children, like, and there is a piece of guilt, you know, so there is guilt, but again, control your controllables. We have grown children, so they're taking care of themselves, right? God bless them. You know, they're independent young men, so they're paying their own bills, they're paying their own way, you know, and It's like, okay, we have grown children. So again, it's like, okay, you can stay in one place, and that could be emotionally, that could be physically, that could be financially, spiritually. You can allow yourself to stay in a space or a place. But what is that doing to the outside, basically? And I don't want to sound all weird and aloof, but mom is taken care of. She is healthy. She is safe. She is in one of the safest spaces, possible, right? The boys. Xavier is good. He's working. He's making his own way. Miles, right? So now, what's in my control? Me and you and me. Ebony and Ivory. So, right? So now, those are really our responsibilities. So now it's, okay, how do we traverse the next phase of life?
Yeah, and even thinking about people we wanted to bring with us. My father was getting older in age, and we had planned to have him come live with us, which, in my family, I think in a lot of black families, the older folks don't want your help. They want to feel like they're independent for as long as possible. And I get that. Like, it's tough. It's tough to, like, give up the thing that you had for your entire life.
My aunt was the same way.
Yeah. And when we decided to move to Mexico, we were like, hey, Dad, come with us. You're living on retirement income. You can save a bunch of money living in Mexico. We can be there to take care of you. And he thought about it. And he was like, it's a tough challenge, right? Like, not only to come to a new country, not know the language, and at some point you're going to have to give up more of your independence because you just can't. And he made the choice that he wanted to stay. He didn't want to go. And there's always the opportunity to feel like, if he had come with us, would he still be alive right now? And again, control your controllables. You can only control what you can. You can't tell the future. You can't say that, he may have come down here and died even sooner. Like, who knows what would have happened?
And playing that game, that what-if game.
You can't win that game. It's a losing game. So, yeah, it's been a tough couple of years when it comes to losing family members. And I think one of those things that, that was part of the choice of why we came here is that we can easily get to them.
Right.
We thought about going to Africa, but when somebody passes, to get back home, you got to take at least 2 days. And it's probably even more planning than that.
It's just definitely a lot more planning, and the flights are more expensive. Whereas a couple to a few $100 to, back and forth to Mexico. Yeah, for sure.
And I think the thing that helps to alleviate that situation, if it's people that you are specifically responsible for when it comes to end-of-life care, when it comes to planning end-of-life in general, one thing we're working on and trying to get better, I know I'm trying to get better, my wife is constantly pushing me of like making sure you have all the insurance information, you have their will in place, they have all of their final end-of-life plans together, and you know how to get your hands on them easily as possible. Because you don't really understand how difficult it is to get all that stuff together until you're actually in the situation. When you say, oh, I know they have a will, but where is it? Is it a strong will? Is it protected by law? Is it, I know they have life insurance, but okay, what company is it? What's the claim number? Who do I call? All those questions that you kind of have, what do they want their funeral to look like? They want to be cremated. Do they want to be, have a viewing first and then cremated? And all this other stuff that kind of works in it, and all that being governed by what budget do I have? Because a lot of us don't have life insurance. A lot of us don't have a will in place. So like, there's so many things that go on that you don't even realize once that person is gone that you have to handle. They may have money in their bank account, but doesn't mean you can just go in and get it all out. There's a whole process to get that done. And none of this is quick, though they have to be in the ground quickly. So like, there's just a lot of challenges. So, I'm going to give myself some advice and give everyone out there some advice. If you have loved ones that you're going to have to take care of at the end of their life, get all that information settled, understood, in your hand, photocopies, so that when things happen, as they eventually will, you are ready. And whether you're right next to them or you're in another country, you have everything planned already. And those are hard conversations to have because no one wants to think about their end of their life.
Correct. going to tell you something that's helpful for me. And this was 10, 11 years ago when Mom and G-Dad got sick. During my prayer time, the Lord told me, be prepared for life. It makes it a whole lot easier. People do die in life, right? But people get sick or just change, right? And how about this? People get grown and go, right? Just be prepared for life. And so if you're prepared for life, for me, it calmed me down. It calmed my emotions, because I can be emotional and just, turn into a bucket of tears. But if you really are just cognizant that life is going to change, we no longer have 4-year-olds. We have a 24-year-old. It changes, and he's no longer single. Now he's married. So if something happened to Xavier, his wife, our daughter-in-law, is now responsible for him, right? So life brings about change. So that's one thing. The other thing is, my pastor said this a long time ago, we are just so, I think, just equipped to just respond instead of being prepared, right? So just be prepared. And so with that preparation, like you mentioned, the banks, right? Something that I had to learn about is, and it may sound gruesome, but it's actually eerie. It's called POD, paid on death. And that is when your bank account, your credit union accounts, or your financial accounts, there is like a beneficiary for your accounts, right? And it's called a POD. And you, as the account holder, you can say who you want that person to be, right? And this is the thing. We also need to be comfortable with the fact that your trust, the person you entrust your will to, what's the name of it?
Executor.
The executor may not be family. Let's be abundantly clear. It may not be the oldest sibling or the oldest child, but they need to be trustworthy and willing and able to handle the situation as it is, right? So there are just things that we should just be prepared for. Again, it's just life. So you can have people or a person as an authorized user on your account that doesn't give them the authority to make changes, open and close and all these other things. It just makes them an authorized user if they have to go in, make a payment or ask a question or what have you to help you. So that's key. And POD is key, because what happens is, if in the event of a death, you literally walk in, you have the death certificate, you have your ID, they literally close the account at the counter and you walk out with the cashier's check. Something that I had a bank advisor tell me, oftentimes if you don't have that set up, the family could actually be in probate 6 months, right? Trying to fight for that money. And when it comes to money, you always think about people being greedy and doing things that are untoward and negative. Sometimes it's just not that way. You have someone who's willing and able to help, but maybe they don't have that extra money to stop working for a week or two to handle affairs. Maybe they don't have that extra money to jump on a plane, right? Yeah. Or rent a car, whatever it is, but they're willing and able and trustworthy. Your money in your bank account, whether you're alive or you have passed on, actually could help them to help you. And I think that's the last piece I would say. If we think about being prepared in that way, me being prepared and helping someone else get prepared is actually me helping me. Because when life changes, oftentimes there could be emotional stress, right? There could be some heartache. There could be some minds being blown. But you know what? I'm already prepared. There's a folder.
There's something you don't have to think about. Yep.
Checked off. Yeah. Checked off.
And also,
and you don't know who your support system is going to be.
Right.
Because that changes.
Mm-hmm. And think about the people that you are trying to get prepared may not always be 100% honest with you. They may take a little bit of money and stash a little something to the side. I'm not going to name no names, Pops, but, you might move a little something also for whatever reason.
Right. But you can't control that.
You can't control that. So a thing I'm thinking about just in this moment, I'll kind of end it on that because I don't have any real answers for it. But we're living in Mexico. As we plan our end of life, you know, what happens to us?
Or life changes.
Right. Like if we were happen to die here, you know, how do we get our bodies back, or how do we get ashes back? Like there's logistics involved in, you know, possibly dying abroad, and maybe you don't want to have your funeral services abroad. You want to have it back home. So those are things I think we all kind of need to think about. So yeah, for y'all kind of listening, I don't know what I want y'all to kind of talk about in the comments, but you know, are you prepared? I guess probably is the question. Are you prepared for yourself? Are you prepared for the loved ones around you? Do some self-reflection. Make sure your business is in order so that if you're gone, the people that are going to need to get to the things you need to get to have access to it, as well as do you have access to your loved ones that you're going to have to take care of. Correct. So again, we're Chris and Jackie.
May I give some homework?
Please.
Okay, so I'm the teacher of this couple. Get your trusted network together. Whether it's one person, if it's 5 people, whatever it is. Make a list of the medications you take. And with that, your caregivers, so your doctors, right? Make a list. These are the medicines that I take. This is how how I take them. These are my doctors, and make sure that it's somewhere safe. You don't even have to hand it out right now, but those trusted people or person, right? They'll know, hey, in the top drawer, Jackie said, is that information, right? Make sure someone has a key to get into the apartment or your house, right? That's number 1. Number 2, make sure that your financial house is in order. Have someone as a POD. You know, and you don't even, again, have to tell them that is something that you put on your checklist, but they know, hey, I'm the one who's trusted to take care of, right? And then once they open the paperwork, oh, Lord, they left me 10 cents. Now they know they got 10 cents to work with, right? So you don't always have to tell everything, but the important thing is that they know and they've taken on that responsibility to take care of your affairs. If you get sick, if you're out of the country, you know, untouchable for whatever reason, right? And then the other thing is to be prepared for life, you know, and be okay with that. Have a peace about it, because life is life. Life changes. And that's just the way it is. And we can't hold that back. You know what I mean? So get your trusted people and make those documents.
And don't hold back from liking, commenting, subscribing, watching another video.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back at y'all again next week with more.
Aprende Más. Cuídate.
I was waiting for her to say it.
We love you guys. Yeah. And keep us in prayers. Heading back to D.C.
All right. We'll see y'all. Peace.